So I think one of the things that Freshworks always stood out for is the kind of culture it creates, right? Two or three things that stand out for me is these are just few examples of how it can help in a professional setup. Accountability definitely stands as one of the strongest pillars for embracing this kind of a mindset. But what also becomes equally important for me is
Welcome to another episode of Marketing and More. In this episode, we have Akshita Kanumury with us. She is a seasoned marketer who believes in operating like an entrepreneur. She has won several industry awards like 30 Under 30 for marketing, Top 100 Product Marketing Influencer by PMA. She is a marketing leader and a mentor. A warm welcome to her.
Akshita, how do you summarize as what you do in your current role?
So I currently lead product marketing at Freshworks for a product line called Freshworks Analytics. So this is actually a platform offering, which means that this is not something that you'll find in a single product of Freshworks, but across the Freshworks suite of products, which also is a very interesting space to be in, because not only you get to work at the depth of understanding the analytics for which I lead the marketing for, but you also get to work with a whole different set of personas because you're also working against like different product lines that this particular offering sits in. Having said that, this is a very unique and challenging place to be in because no 2 days look alike. So if I had to kind of summarize 4 focus areas of my current role, they would essentially be messaging and positioning, launches, enablement, and also intelligence. By intelligence, I mean both market intelligence as well as customer intelligence.
Right.
So that's what I currently do.
Yeah. In your current role, how do you differentiate an employee mindset versus entrepreneurial mindset? Because when we talk about Freshworks, when we talk about the successful SaaS that has come from India, Freshworks is the one that tops the chart. So how do you describe the employee mindset that's there at Freshworks, and how do you guys try to improve that day by day?
Great question. So I think one of the things that Freshworks always stood out for is the kind of culture it creates, right? People come to work not with an employee mindset, but with a very entrepreneurial mindset. And that, according to me, has been its secret sauce. Because despite having like a great product, great go-to-market strategy, and all of these other factors, but I think what kind of set it apart was most people work with a very entrepreneurial mindset. And what this means is basically people don't wait for things to be assigned to them, things to be told to them, a process or a cadence to be set. People take charge and accountability of their function or area right from day one. And I think in an employee mindset, typically you would want things to be structured, things to have a process, things to have like a precedence so that you can follow that and stick to that kind of a rigor. But whereas an entrepreneurial mindset is all about doing things which have not been done before, setting up new practices, thinking out of the box, all of these things, right? So that I think has been Freshworks' secret sauce as well.
Okay, interesting. So whenever I go to YouTube and search about employee mindset versus entrepreneurial mindset, there are hundreds of videos, if not more, uh, talking about employee mindset versus entrepreneurial mindset. But what's interesting about me telling this story is that I couldn't find even one such which talks about how to instill that entrepreneurial mindset being an employee for an organization and how that's beneficial. So that is something that I really want to know from you today. That will be the core of our discussion today. Having said that, as you rightly mentioned, I also feel that there are three things that defines an entrepreneurial mindset. One, they are very keen to find an opportunities with whatever they're doing. They're very keen to find those right pieces which can come together and work as something which yield results for the organizations. Second, I feel is action oriented mindset is what they have. They don't want to uh, be seen as doing work, but they want their work to be seen. And finally, what the most important piece for me here is resilience. If I talk about a story, Karsan Bhai Patel, he began experimenting with homemade detergent formulas back in his backyard. What's interesting to know is the date of this whole episode. Back in 1960s, there was no a thing called Shark Tank. There was no entrepreneurial wave as such in the country. But back in 1960s, this guy, Karsan Bhai Patel, began experimenting with his homemade detergent formula back in his backyard. Despite initial skepticism and rejections, he persisted. Uh, so what he did was he went door to door personally for selling his homemade detergent, emphasizing its affordability and effectiveness. The brand that I'm talking about is Nirma. We all know
Mm.
how success it has been in the industry. So I mean, I totally agree with you. Do you think thinking like an entrepreneur boost innovation and your eagerness to take initiatives as well?
Oh, absolutely. That becomes, I think, the core of the entrepreneurial mindset, right? Because every day you look at a problem statement or a challenge like the next opportunity for doing something that has not been done before or doing something uh, differently, looking at it from a different lens. So it's all about problem solving end of the day, right? So you would always want to like look at that particular potential gap or that particular potential problem on how you could use that opportunity to scale it differently, to enter into a new market, into a new segment. And if you kind of look back, I think a couple of years, COVID was all about that, right? People were put in a situation that nobody had countered before globally. And that brought out a lot of these shifts in thinking, right? Like even for a regular business, which has been doing the same thing over and over for the last, say, past 100 years, they also had to pivot because things were definitely not working how they were working conventionally or traditionally all those years. So
Correct.
I think this particular mindset helps you and prepares you for situations that you may not have seen coming. So having that kind of problem solving ability, the agility. So even if say you've not planned for it, but ability to think on the feet, not get burdened by the stress and the pressures of that situation. All these things, I think, help not only like startups or people who are entrepreneurs or founders of small and medium businesses, but also like large organizations where they also have to pivot and they also have to uh, kind of make sure all the different teams that are working are moving in that particular direction where they have to think on the feet and move according to the changing times. So I think it holds good for both these cases, right? It's not limited to organizations of small or medium size anymore. It's also for global organizations who are spread across multiple different countries.
Sure. Uh, so one of the key things that I feel as an individual is people often don't remember the principles or the values, but they remember the names. When you associate any name with any of those principles and values or a process framework, the recall value of that particular framework increases drastically. So that's the reason I'm asking you this question. If you could share few examples of individuals that has successfully embraced this shift of thinking like an entrepreneur to boost their innovation and the capability of taking initiatives. If you can name some of the examples of individuals, that will be great.
Many, right? So I think every season of Shark Tank that you mentioned originally, when we started the podcast, I also like religiously watch.
Mhm.
And it's so amusing, right? So people coming from, I think, very small and remote places within the country, embracing these challenges and pivoting. So one example that comes, I think, top of my mind are these women entrepreneurs from Dharbanga. So they were Jhaji
Yeah, I remember
Pickles
that. Yeah.
first season, right?
Yeah.
So they started very small as a home business, homemakers doing this and all of that. And then when COVID hit, they also had to pivot, go online, look for marketplaces and all of that. And nobody comes in prepared thinking, okay, today I will do this offline, but tomorrow I will make sure I'll be very adept with, like, marketplace systems, and then do my business online and all of that. But then what I think is important is, even if you don't have that skill set, even if you don't have the background, even if you don't have the knowledge, that ability to kind of put yourself out there and learn every day as it comes, right? So I think that is important. Not having that prior knowledge, all of that skill set is fine, but as long as you're ready to embrace that challenge and take it head on and be open to learning, I think that sets people apart. And not just one example, this just came top of my mind because this is from a very, very unconventional and um, what do you think, not the typical entrepreneurs that you would find every single day, but many, many examples. People who have, I think, dropped out from school, people who have embraced entrepreneurship late in life, many, many such stories.
Yeah.
One other, I think, story close home, which I kind of am personally like associated or known, I think,
Yeah.
is one of the founders of Dubai Tech Talks,
Okay.
where I also am a core member. So the founder of Dubai Tech Talks, Sri Devi, so she also was basically in the corporate space, in the HR leadership function and all of that. She took a career break for about 10, 15 years, and then she wanted to get back. And then things were not falling in place, and a lot of things had changed. So she was finding it very hard to get back into the corporate. But then she embraced that challenge, and then she started her own community, which is doing so well. And she's now thriving as a community leader and as an entrepreneur, where now the community has scaled from 0 to 1,000 members, not just within Dubai, they have a global audience and all of that, right? So many, many examples, if we like look closely, even around us, and not just like looking at platforms like Shark Tank,
Yeah.
even closely around us, it could be someone who probably left his corporate job to start like a fast food restaurant, which is now
Hmm.
like a chain.
Hmm.
So many of those around us.
Hmm. Makes sense. One such example that comes to my mind is of Greg Greeley. Many of us would not know that Greg Greeley and his team were the one who saw the potential of offering exclusive benefits like fast shipping to create that loyal customer base. And thus, Amazon Prime was actually born. It was not an idea of their top leadership to have something like Amazon Prime, but that's the entrepreneurial mindset that if you have that culture that your employee thinks like an entrepreneur, your organization is definitely going to do well. But at the same time, uh, as an employee, you open a world of opportunities for yourself as well when you start thinking in that direction. So that's one such example. How does thinking like an entrepreneur help people to take control of their work and career?
Absolutely. To be very honest, I personally don't see any downside of having that entrepreneurial approach in work, right? I only see upsides. And I think two or three things that stand out for me is, when you're thinking like an entrepreneur, you're already looking at your area of work end to end. You're not waiting for dependencies on, like, this input needs to come to me from this particular team, and only then I'll start my work and all of that. You are taking charge and you're following up with the respective stakeholders and making sure that you get the work done no matter where you need that help coming for. And that basically makes you the subject matter expert in your area of work, right? So then over a period of time, what happens is people start coming to you asking for, help, advice, feedback, questions. And that puts you in a very, very, I think, powerful position even within the organization when you start becoming like a critical resource and a subject matter expert. So that's definitely one way of uh, taking control of your career. Another way of taking control, I feel, with this kind of spirit, is that you always look at things from a lens where you're just solving these challenges, right? And when you start doing that, you basically not just avoid things getting escalated and snowballing into like big issues, but you're kind of plugging the gaps then and there before it even culminates into one. So when
Hmm.
you start doing this proactively and not reactively, that also puts you in a place where it builds a very strong case for your own conversations for your appraisals or year-end reviews and all of that, that hey, these were potential places where things could have gone wrong, but I've kind of done this and this to kind of avoid that particular issue to escalate or become something else. So I think these are just few examples of how it can help in a professional setup. But even at a personal level, right, when you're doing all this day in and day out, there's a tremendous amount of learning that comes your way. It could be in the form of skills that you've not picked up before. Say someday, just giving an example, right? You need something to like get done, which is time sensitive, designer is not available. So you look at resources. Now there's so much AI everywhere, right? So you don't really need to be the hands-on expert there. So you pull out a bunch of resources, see how that particular thing can be done, get it done, and then the day is saved, right? So
Yeah.
there's no more like, dependency that could have potentially delayed it. And end of the
Absolutely.
day, you've also learned like a new skill. You've
Yeah.
also explored a new tool. So personally, also it kind of helps you stay up to date, stay current, and all of that. So both ways, I think it's a win-win. And someday you realize it builds enough confidence and validation for you that, hey, I've done enough problem solving being within an organization. Now I have that conviction and skill set. And I also have identified this is the area of work that really excites me. Who knows? You could be the next entrepreneur and build your unicorn. Who knows?
Yeah.
So I think all this becomes like a great foundation and stepping stone for that.
Agreed. Agreed. Breaking this into fundamentals. Let's say somebody click on the thumbnail and watches this video, and he try and understand, okay, what is that one thing that I can take away from this discussion? And if I want to have that entrepreneurial mindset while working as an employee in an organization, what is that one thing that I can start with? For me, that is accountability. I wanted to understand, is that the same thing for you as well? And if yes, then how do you take that accountability to embrace that entrepreneurial culture?
Great. So I think accountability definitely stands as one of the strongest, I think, tenets or pillars for embracing this kind of a mindset. But what also becomes equally important for me is problem solving ability,
Okay.
right? So sometimes I've also seen people who are very accountable, they take full ownership.
Hmm.
They keep giving these proactive updates that, hey, this particular thing I see like a potential red flag, things are not moving here. You are accountable. You're taking ownership, but what are you doing about it? So
Hmm.
you already see a challenge, but what is your response to the challenge? How are you kind of trying to circumnavigate that situation? So I think accountability coupled with the problem solving ability, if you don't have the answers, probably immediately have like a brainstorming session with people who think might be able to help you. Get them together, ask for like suggestions, ideas, and then how do you kind of translate these suggestions into action? So all of these also like become equally important, I think.
I agree.
So having intent, accountability, and also a path to execute that intent, which
Hmm.
is proactive initiative, problem solving ability, all of those things, I think,
Hmm. Hmm. True.
combined together.
True that. True that. We've talked a lot about what employees need to do. Let's shift gears and try and understand what organizations need to do. There are today in India, if we talk about, there is a wave of startup culture that's there. What is in it for them to take away from this session, and how they can create that culture in their own organization so that their employees instill that entrepreneurial mindset within them so that they can achieve that success that they are wishing for.
Great question, right? So I think this should always be like a two-way street and not a one-way street. It really doesn't help if, say, employees come in with that entire oozing enthusiasm, and then end of the day they see that this is not even translating into anything quantifiable. It
Correct.
starts becoming very demotivating for them to keep doing that over and over again, right? So this
Hmm.
is always a two-way street, and I think just as important as it for employees to embrace this culture, it's equally or more important for potential employers or entrepreneurs to not just build this culture, but also nurture and foster and keep that going for years or as they scale and all of that. That's equally important, I feel.
Yeah.
And I think few ways of doing that could be calling it out, right? Like recognizing the right kind of talent or projects. It could be qualitative, giving them that forum or podium to kind of speak, recognize, spotlight, and all of that. It could also be quantitative, where they get rewarded in monetary incentives or stocks if the company is already listed, or they could also be rewarded with probably a different responsibility over and beyond what they're doing. So all of these kind of things. And they could also probably look at catering budgets for probably learning and development for people to just experiment. They could have like a department for innovation and all of that, where people just go there beyond their day job to see what is like, futuristic, just tinker around, see what's working, fail enough number of times, but at least try all of these things, right? So these could be some of the ways. But I think what also becomes very, very imperative is people at the leadership level who are in the position of influence. They should definitely speak more about it, and also practice what they preach, right? So they should also take on things which are different from their everyday work, and they should also talk about it in meetings and forums, so that people get inspired and also think about it, that, oh, this person at this level handling these responsibilities is still able to pull time out and work on passion projects. Probably it's never too late for me. I should also do something like that. So I think people in power definitely should make use of their position of influence to inspire more people who are uh, on the brink of doing something path breaking. So
I agree. Can't agree more. It reminds me of one of such example. Uh, Nikhil Kamath from Zerodha is doing fab, being a content creator as well as running an organization like Zerodha. So yeah, people will look up to people like Nikhil Kamath, and certainly set themselves on that journey to first be able to uh, get a entrepreneurial mindset within themselves, and then go out, find their passion, and probably, who knows, builds next unicorn that India is waiting for. On that note, thank you so much, Akshita, for being with us. It was lovely talking to you.
same, your pleasure was all mine. And this is one of my favorite topics to converse about. And I'm super happy I got to do it on a forum like yours, and hope to foster more such conversations. I think even in regular office setups, or even for people meeting away from the office setup. Hope this becomes like a very natural conversation progression going
Definitely.
forward.
Definitely rooting for that as well.